Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like fourth.
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Gao, joined by my co-host, Matt Gunlock. And today we have another special guest, JJ Racaza, coming on for round two. We also have Sergeant Sam Nelson and Sergeant Josh Cardenas with us today. So the emphasis today, Sergeants Cardenas and Nelson, they attended a JJ Racaza class at Shadowhawk at the end of August. And that was just a few weeks before Nationals. And with the emphasis of them going into MIC season, going to Okinawa, Camp Pendleton, Lejeune, everywhere around the Marine Corps and teaching, we wanted to make this podcast specifically about instruction. So that's what we're going to be covering mostly today. JJ is a very accomplished shooter, but he's also very widely known for his instruction. That's where I first met him. I took a class from him in Covington, Georgia back in like 2020. I took another one in 2021. Yeah, it was a while ago. But yeah, learned nothing but great things. Glad that these guys got the opportunity to go to his class. We just want to pick everyone's brain and come together for this roundtable. But first off, JJ, thanks again for joining us. You've had a very busy month. So we ran into you at Carry Optics Nationals, and then you did Pan American, and then you did IDPA Nationals, and then Hurricane Ian hit, and you had to put like armor on your house. So how are you doing, man?
Good. We got super lucky with all that stuff. It's been a great month. I guess per se, it's crazy how busy a month can be. But I knew that this was coming right throughout the year, that I've been preparing for this last 3 months. I have 4 national titles to go for, and then I had a Pan American championship, and then a world championship on top of that. So it's been crazy. And then throw in Hurricane Ian in there, kind of threw a wrench in the plan. Couldn't practice for about a week. Everything was shut down here in Florida. It made us nervous because we were supposed to get a direct hit, but we got super lucky, super lucky. But it's crazy to think that 90 miles from here, where I drive to go train or see if some of my friends don't have houses right now, and some of them are still out of electricity, and it's just nuts. Like, we just got extremely lucky. So.
Yeah. I have to say, like, knowing what it's like to go through bad hurricanes, bad winter storms this past year. If you need anything, or if anybody needs any support, let us know. We'll be happy to help.
Okay, will do. Thank you, Matt. That's awesome.
Yeah.
First question is actually for Sam and Josh, and I'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah.
Can you talk through the format JJ's class, and then what were some of your expectations before you took that class?
So as far as expectations go, I didn't really have an expectation, just because this was my first class ever I've ever received, specific to USPSA or specific to shooting in general. I mean, because we obviously learn from each other at work with the teams and all, but I never actually received a aid. And I went to a class for an instructor and then go from there. But what I knew, and what you, like, JJ, your reputation of you're just really good with instruction, you're really that positive energy, just always interface about it, was just, that's what I was expecting to see, because that's what everyone told me. But I just didn't want it. I just wanted to see with open eyes and see what happens. And so but you brought that same energy that I was essentially expecting, and it was refreshing, but it was also just kind of oh, this is what a fun class can be. This is what can I'm observing, I'm learning, I'm seeing a lot of things that I just kind of, either it's blowing my mind, I'm like, oh, that makes sense, or maybe I can utilize this type of knowledge. And that was probably the biggest expectation that was actually met. And the format really was just pretty, I guess, formal and informal. He just led the class, just said what we were going to do, and we joked around, had really regular conversations about things. And honestly, it was the best class I've ever actually taken.
Gosh.
for a first class I've ever actually taken, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a good time. I really, really enjoyed that experience. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sam, anything there?
Pretty much agree with everything Josh said. I I don't want to say I had expectations, but obviously you had taken this class. You pretty much dumped all the knowledge that you took from that class onto me. So I had an idea of how it was ran and what would be taught and stuff, but I still went in with an open mind and had a blast, and it was awesome.
Cool. And then for you, JJ, so do you ever walk into a class? I guess we'll talk about that class at Shadowhawk. Do you ever have an expectation of skill levels out of those students? And then just what are some of the things that you do to prepare for a class?
Yeah, I do. I have a certain level of expectation when I walk into my classes specifically. I expect people to at least be more in an advanced mindset. The expectation of people wanting to be there, that's already understood. Like they took the time to be there, and they booked me. My wife did. It's the whole process and all that. So I know they're really already excited to begin with. But I want people that are taking the classes to already have done their work. So I'm not trying to hash out the clean stuff. Like I just want to move forward as far as I can because there's so many things I'm going to teach, right? And then there's so many things that can be taught. And so I want to take that opportunity. And in the 2 days that we have, I want to make sure to maximize that. And secondly, in regards to me preparing for the class, I really just, a lot of the things that I do is I review the topics that I like to cover in kind of like in a chronological order in some sense, but I'm going to always be keeping in mind that I'm going to be flexible depending the class will allow me to be flexible. If they want me to run, I'm going to run. If the class can handle it, I'm going to start taking off even further with that, right? And Josh and them had a really good class. It was fortunate that we had a little bit of a mix. I think there was majority of the guys that were there have already previously taken the class, and guys like Josh came in and Sam with a lot of their experience and background. It was way easier for me. So with regards to preparing for the class, really, I reviewed some of my notes that I need to make sure I cover, some of the critical points that I need to talk about, and certain things that I know like these are really important. I got to hammer and drive it in a little bit more because some of the classes I don't get to drive this in, and whatever, right? Feedback from other classes, and then I watch a lot of my videos, especially my field course videos, and then I watched a lot of my other students' videos 2-3 days before. I just immerse myself in there, and then if there's any topics that I talk about that I can tie into the class, and if we get into the field course section, I need to be able to bring this up if it comes up, and then I just keep those in the front of my mind because there's no set. Although I have a syllabus that I follow, there's no set class. Like you've taken 2 of my classes, it's 2 different types of classes depending on the class that I have. The way Josh and theirs and Sam's class went, I ran as hard as I could in the first day, and then the second day we ran all field courses. I think they allowed us because they got switched, and we went all field courses the second day, and it was awesome. And then we had to adjust because there was a storm coming in. It just went perfectly the way it needed to, and the conversation just led in many different arenas where I think Josh and Sam, guys like that have taken my class, or bands have done their work, and then guys that took my class previously really benefited from it. Same with Gabby. Gabby they just took my class 6 months ago, but we didn't have the opportunity to take it to the field course as deep, as in depth as we did in their class for sure.
Yeah, the first class I took from you that was at South River Gun Club, that was a lot more beginner oriented. I could tell that you spent a lot more time being deliberate with your concepts. You talked about the 90-10. You made us do that thing where we draw the Sharpie and like try to hit that dot. But a lot of those concepts, like that was the entire first day. We did some field course stuff on the second time, but second class I took from you was at Chris Tilley's range. And that was almost entirely practical application. So yeah, I was really interested to see how you like adapted. Because that second class had a lot higher skill level, like Nick Young, Billy Barton. Yeah, like really, really good shooters that second time around. But yeah, no, really interesting.
So this is for Sam and Josh, and Josh, if you could start first. What were some of the specific bits of feedback that you received from JJ that you implemented immediately? And then also to go along with that, everything that we take from competition and outside classes, we try and create a lesson plan, a period of instruction. What's on the backlog to work on during the off season with everything that you receive from JJ? And then what are you going to put into the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two things that I grabbed that were like that really stuck with me was the transition and your method of movement. Those were the two things that I saw that I was like, okay, these are things that I have to implement because it will improve my game. The transition, I always thought that I was actually pretty good at transitions, just because I would feel like I can just push off target as soon as I feel the push and recoil. But you dissected it. You went even further into like what to focus on. And as soon as the shot breaks, it's not even the shot, it's like literally as soon as I start pressing the trigger, I'm going off at transition. And that's something that I never actually experienced was the graph that you're talking about, the line that you kind of like where you're
The bump transition.
the bump transition. Yeah, the bump, that technique and learning like, okay, seeing it on a board and seeing like what is actually happening, that kind of was like, okay, it's making more sense. And I think that isolated skill, it's super important. And then the second thing was the movement. You're a master at movement. Like it's clear, like when you move stages, it's because we're not really we don't obviously see you like shooting fast per se, but your movement is just insane. And so the skating, the transition where you actually like you're doing that, oh man, that like blew my mind. I was like, dude, I tried, I was like, oh dude, there's no way, man. Like why aren't I doing this? This is crazy, man. So those are definitely the two things that I'm going to start pushing more for the off season. I did have a question for you though, because there's two things. There's actually one thing that I wanted to actually ask and we didn't go over was the mindset thing. I know I asked the question during the course about how do you control mindset, and then I had an instructional question as well. But yeah, that was the two things that I wish we could have gone over, which I'm sure we just could have talked about later. Those are the
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you want me to address those questions right now?
Yeah,
Go
for it.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, sweet. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So my biggest thing was like I have a hard time focusing on keeping like a positive. Like if I make a mistake, I let it hurt I let it affect me. You know, it affects me through the next stage and throughout the day because I feel like I'm behind, and I have a hard time focusing, especially on 10, 12 stage matches. So what's like a method you use in order to kind of get through that?
So it wasn't always easy. I was the same way. I was up and down. I could focus on one stage, bomb, or maybe two stages and then bomb like a third stage or something. Not necessarily bomb, but like do bad. And then something that will affect me negatively for the next stage. And then before I can fight back again, right? And it was years. It took me years and years to figure out what do I need? Meditation. I did a lot of these classes, focus drills. I did a lot of those things, and it never really translated. The one thing that I started to really do, and it's sad, right? Because it's 2018, was only about 4 or 5 years ago. In 2018, I started to implement scenarios and levels of expectation in my training. So remember phase 1, 2, and 3 in my training process, right? Phase 2 is basically just explore and push and allowing myself to fail and emotions get all carried away and all that stuff. Phase 3, one thing I didn't talk about it in class necessarily was that in phase 3, when I'm in phase 3, I'm focusing on execution, right? Pure execution. I'm establishing my pace for the match, and I'm going to stick with this and trust this, right? And the reason why I can trust it is I start experimenting and I start really playing scenario-based stuff that I'm going to pull off in the match. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an expectation, which creates a level of tension in my shooting, creates some sort of pressure. It kind of builds in training. I'm going to go, all right, I'm going to shoot 6 targets and there's 2 poppers here. I'm going to move from this position to this position. And I'm going to shoot 3 targets in a left position with the steal. And I'm going to go to the right target. And there's going to be another right position, another 3 targets and 2 steals. Every single shot. I don't want to see any more than 2 Charlies on this run. And I want to be able to shoot it consistently. Not push, just a regular base pace. And I'll execute that. When I run it, I'm going to tell myself I don't want anything more than 2 Charlies, and I don't want anything any pickup shots on steal. That's the expectation that I set, right? I run that drill, and if I can meet that expectation, then I start going, all right, can I repeat that same exact pace and repeat that drill? I'll repeat it again, 2 to 3 times. If I can do it 2 to 3 times, that's what I call scenario 1. Scenario 1 is basically if I need a base pace at the match that I can pull off a 99% execution, that's what I'm going to go with. Number 2 scenario is, all right, let's say it's a tight match between the top, and then I need about 5 points of makeup here or there, where I'm going to need to maybe either maybe you have a small lead or I'm right with the leaders and I need to create some distance between me and them. I'm going to induce some sort of aggressive movement. And that's scenario 2, but I'm going to maintain my shooting portion the same way my accuracy focus type shooting, where 2 Charlies or 1 Charlie, whatever, depending on how many stages, targets there are, how many rounds I'm shooting. Then I run that and I move aggressively as aggressively as I can. And then I start comparing the times from my scenario 1 to scenario 2. If there was a difference, and if my performance changed my results on paper as well. I want to know, I want to make sure in scenario 2 that my performance changed my results on time, but not on paper. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's
okay.
scenario 2. And if I can do that 3 times in a row, that's something that I'm going to carry in as a back pocket if I need it on the match. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, let's say if I go to the match and I only have 2 scenarios that I'm going to bring with, 2 just in case scenarios that I need, and these are the pace. I go to the match, I shoot my scenario 1. I always start with my base scenario, and I shoot that, and I go, oh man, I'm a little bit behind off pace. I'm a half a second, a quarter of a second. Everyone's a little bit faster than me, whatever it may be. Maybe it's the drill. And if it's only a half a second, quarter second, I'll start looking at points. If they're 2 Charlies more than me, I'm not really too concerned about it. But if we're even with the points, and I'm literally just half second, I may let that run for 3 stages, and before I make an adjustment. Maybe they're just having 3 good stages or 2 good stages that they're burning out, and then by the 3rd stage there's a hiccup, and then I can maintain this base pace. If I can maintain my base pace throughout the entire match, I'm golden, right? However, there are days where I go in the match right off the bat and I'm like, oh man, I could tell everyone is a little bit faster than me. Their pace is better than mine, and I seem to not be able to keep up with them even 3 stages in. And I'm now sitting at 5th. I don't like where I'm sitting in the leaderboard. All right, so I'm going to pull out scenario 2. Scenario 2 now is when I'm going to move a lot more aggressively. I'm going to start taking things on the move coming in. I'm going to start taking targets coming out. I'm going to take targets on a lean and stuff like that, some control targets, but I'm going to maintain my shooting pace. And that's how that's the scenario I build. Scenario 3 is what happened to me at Optics Nationals. Scenario 3 is when I get far behind, where just something happens, some wild thing happens, and I go, all right, I need to make up time, right? I need to make up a lot of points in a lot of time. And this is what I need. And this is now I'm going to push my pace in shooting while I'm still moving as aggressively as I can. However, if I move up my pace in shooting, I'm going to be willing to give up a little bit of points for some time. And I'm going to explain that a little bit here shortly, and the reason for that. And then a lot of that has to do with mindset. Then I set that, and I do the same, essentially similar type stage, and then I'll compare my time from my scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. Scenario 3 should now be at least 3/4 of a second faster than my scenario 1. Maybe it's not that much faster. Maybe it's a second faster. Maybe it's a half a second faster. But I want to pay attention that it's better than my scenario 2, and my points is not that much worse. Does that make sense? And I'm still winning. Maybe I gave up a few more points, but I'm winning by 1 or 2 points on scenario 3. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So 3 is the most aggressive. So now if I can do this in training and establish these scenarios that I can pull out anytime, once I establish that in phase 3, my next 2 or 3 training sessions, I will literally pull out scenario 1, scenario 2 at any given moment in time in my training session. But now I'm shooting random field courses of fire, random order of targets, and random sequences. And I'll just go, I'm in scenario 1 right now. I'm just going to shoot base pace. Ba 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 ba, ding ding ding, ba ba ding, ba ba ding, move, reload, da whatever. Okay, cool. Hits were good. Charlies and whatever, alphas. 99% were shots were alphas. Cool. Tape it up. Excuse me. And then the next drill, my dad would be like, all right, I want you to shoot this, reload, shoot that, strong hand. All right, I don't like the strong hand, but while I'm shooting freestyle, I'm going to go in scenario 2. I'm going to move fast. I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. Same pace. Really aggressively move, reload, go strong hand. And when I get to strong hand, I got to go to base pace because I don't like strong hand or one hand shooting as much. So I'll just prep the triggers, all control. And then the next run, I didn't like that. I didn't like that result. I'm going to go back to scenario 1. And then I'll make this scenario back and forth, assuming I'm shooting a match. Like every drill that I shoot or every string that I shoot is basically simulating a stage that I'm going to be shooting at national. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right. So with that said, going back to scenario 3, where I just need to be a little bit faster in overall time, and I'm willing to give up a little bit of points because I know in matches what I'm trying to do also is start to rent space on people's head. If I'm in, like, I'm going to tell you that story in nationals. I was leading, Max and I were about 1 point, and we were basically tied going to the second day. After the first day, we were tied for first place going to the second day. And I guess I haven't really told the story, but this is how it happened. First stage right off the bat, Max shoots 2 mics on the strong hand 1-1-1-1 stage.
Yep.
Right, Virginia count shoots 2 mics, and I'm like, man, that's 20 points. I was like, I can't believe Max just gave me the win. Like, here's the wide open door. Niels was 20 points back from us. That's comfortable. If I'm in the lead by 10 points, I'm starting to get comfortable. 20 points, I'm really comfortable, right? So Max just gave it to me, and I'm like, holy cow. I was like, whoa, I don't know what to do here. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect Max to give it to me that easily. And so I started thinking way ahead. It's like, man, this is crazy. I'm going to repeat the win, and it's going to be an easy win. And so wait, I got to shoot the stage. I got to focus. Let me try to just go alphas. I'm just going to try to go all alphas and shoot in the middle and not take any chances here, because Max just gave me 20 points. I go to the stage, and literally I remember on one of the zebra, I came in and aimed in on it, and then my sights was behind the wall, not necessarily on target yet. So I said, oh, move over to the right so I can see it, but I had already prepped the trigger, and with a little bit more tension, I sent around into the wall, which veered away into the black. It's Virginia count, but I didn't even consider that I was going to miss. Not scenario played. I didn't visualize that at all. I panicked. I fired another shot. So I'm like, oh my God, I got a hit. I got an extra shot. I don't know if I got an extra hit, because I don't even know if that was a mic. And I'm like, holy cow. I started to take off, and I'm like, oh, there's one more target, an easy wide open target. I'm like, don't mess up anymore. Prep a little bit, prep on this target, even if it's easy. Prepped it, over prepped it, sent the round over the head. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is unreal. Like, this is happening right now. And I still got strong hand to go. So I reload the strong hand. I'm like, now my gun's doing this. I'm like, I can't see my red dot. Just don't even touch the trigger, because you keep freaking ADing everywhere. And finally I see my dot, prepped it, bang, prepped it, and I controlled it, right? And I'm like, I remember shaking my head, and you have 2 strings to do this. And I remember sitting there going, holy smokes, I just gave up the other 20 points, and I was slower. So now I was like, I'm down 10 points from Max on this stage. I'm like, what a jackass. I mean, right? Like, what a rookie, right? Like, I'm so mad at my head. And now emotions is driving my head. And I told you, emotions, mindset, and physical skills is what allows you to stay in the zone. I was nowhere near the zone, because at this point I'm mad, I'm embarrassed, and I just effed up, right? I bombed the whole stage. My dad, I could tell, I can feel the heat. My dad was watching me. And like, he wants to beat my ass. So I reload for the next string. No time to cool off at all. I'm like, all right, just got to shoot straight. I shoot, switch to left hand, shot everything clean. I was like, just salvage it. And whatever I shot, I didn't care for the time. I just shot whatever I needed to shoot. That stage alone, that mistake unhinged me mentally completely for the next 3 stages. And it's never happened to me before where it's been a long time since I've done 3 stages in a row, back to back, mistakes like that. And the next day, and it was just one of those things that I couldn't get myself back to center, where I literally, after the 3rd stage, and I remember I threw another mic. I had 4 pickup shots on one steal, 4 or 5. And my dad's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm just shooting angry. And I remember that was the first time I'm like, I know I need to tape. And I hate not taping, but I was like, I'm here to represent myself, and I'm not doing good. Other people can pick up the slack for me. I took the keys. I walked away from the squad and locked myself in the car. And I just sat, and I closed my eyes and re-visualized and trying to get myself back to center, right? And that was the big thing. So I got myself, I think I lost 50 to 60 points within 3 stages, right? So immediately at the end of the day, it didn't even matter. The rest of the day, I was literally just clinging on. I knew it was such a bad day that at the end of I shot the last stage, and they're like, yep, that's it. I was like, wait, we're done? They're like, yeah, we're done for the day. And I'm like, gosh, dang. I was like, I can't believe I had a full bad day. I was like, that's terrible. I was like, how bad is the result? So I looked at the results and I immediately saw myself at, I think, 57 points behind. Max was only a few points away from Nils, about 5 points away from Nils. So I'm like, Max stayed in it. I was like, I took myself out and I just completely unhinged. And then I think there was Vlieger, Mason, Miriam, and a couple other people on top of me. And I'm like, man, that's terrible. I was like, I had this and I know it's there. Mentally, I just fell apart. So the 3rd day, I knew right away I was going to go and face scenario 3. I need to catch up. I need to push, and I need to get in people's mind, because if I let any of the 2, like Nils and Max specifically, including Vlieger, because Vlieger was only about 15 points away from I think Niels or Max, he was well within the top three, right? If I let them get comfortable and keep this lead up there, it's going to be very hard to catch him. No freaking way am I going to catch him, right? 54, 57 points. That's like a mile already that you've let off, and you got 30 seconds to catch up, basically. So I was like, all right, I need to start making moves right on the first day. So what I did was I rehashed what I did on the second day, and I made sure to not make the mistake. The second day, I wasn't warmed up. I didn't sweat. I didn't do my visualization. I didn't meditate the day before. Right before the match, because it was a morning start. I didn't do any of these. So the next day, I made sure to do all of the stuff. I checked off the list, and I got myself in the right mindset. Like, dude, it was so depressing that I didn't want to go. Beretta had an official dinner to go out that night to have a meeting. I canceled. I said, nope, I'm not leaving my room. I ordered room service. I ate in my room. I watched a bunch of sad movies. I put a pillow over my head. My dad just like, my dad even knew. It's like, he just needs to be alone right now. I was so depressed. I didn't want to go out at all. So anyway, the next day, got myself right, started feeling good, started getting the juices going, and I started to get nervous. I'm like, this is what I needed to feel, this act of nervousness that yesterday I didn't feel. I was too comfortable and too relaxed, thinking I already had the win. So I was like, now we got work. It's like, let's see how respectable we can make this. And that was it. Stage from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I started to really just start to connect more and more. And not only that, I was more on the edge in regards to pushing, but Niels was way too comfortable, so I couldn't even make an effect on him. Niels had a great day. Niels was the only other person that had a great day that day. And I caught up about 25 points on him, I think, because I think I ended up losing by about 30 points. But I was able to catch Max. It literally took all of 6 stages to catch Max. And I remember going to the 3 stages to go. I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, I need to know points. I need to know how much further I need to go. He's like, to who? And I'm like, to Niels. And he's like, Niels is a little tough because he's shooting good, but you're within striking distance of Max. I said, how much is Max? He's like, you're about 20 points away. I said, all right, let me throttle on this big stage. It was a big Y stage and all that stuff. And I throttled up on that, shot good points. And I knew it wasn't Max's strength because it's further distance type shooting. So I knew I could make up some points there. I think, or that stage, I think I made up like 15 points on him. So I was about 30, made up about 15, going to the 2 stages to go. I was down 14. I said 14 points. Let me make up a few more here. Messed up a little bit, but not enough for them to make a difference in regards to Max. And Max shot a few more Ds. So I ended up getting 4 or 5 points going to the last stage. My dad's like, 10 points. Can you get 10 points in this stage? I said, I have a very aggressive plan. I'm going to shoot this as best I can. I said, Dad, I'm not going to confirm alpha, but I'm going to get 2 hits on paper. And if it happens to land on the alpha, it's 2 alpha. But I'm going to accept 2 Charlies, Alpha Charlie. I'm not going to confirm it. I'm just going to go for time and see if I can get in the headspace. And that's all it took. I didn't, not to say that I got in Max's head, but his performance definitely showed it through the day. He started to get affected by it quite a bit. John Vlieger, I think, had a blow up on the second stage. Mason Lane started messing up right away after the first stage, and then just mentally was not there anymore, was checked out. And same thing with the guys that were in front of me, because I was shooting so solid, it started to affect them mentally. Nils, just if I had 2 more stages, maybe like there was be enough to go, hey, what's JJ doing back here? He's making a pretty hard charge. But man, Nils was so comfortable, and he shot so solid, and he's been doing that throughout the year. And I told him an NRA show, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Carry Optics, because I can't wait to see what you, me, Mason, and Max will do, because I think it's going to come down to all 4 of us. And if Christian Seiler is going to be there, he'll definitely be in the mix for that, because I know Christian Seiler, that's his game. He's an accurate shooter, so that will be awesome to see. Can't wait for the race to happen. It just sadly I didn't make it a race. I dicked it up myself on the second day. But that's how scenario 2, 1, and 3 plays out. I never get to talk about that in class, because that's more scenario based. That's more kind of a conversation here between you and I. In a class, it's hard for some of the guys can't even follow that kind of information, because they're just going to be disconnected. Like, I'm never going to be in that position type of thing.
Right. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, it's interesting to hear when you see the perspective of like the top shooters in the world, and like what goes through their mindset through like a big match, or even just shooting in general.
Yeah.
And you kind of going, oh, I can relate to that, or man, why did I think of that method of you know what I mean? Like it's so interesting to hear.
Yeah, and you and I had this conversation, I think, on that way to Area 8, and I know for you, I don't do it because it messes with my head. I don't look at scores. It sounds like JJ, you only look at scores in very specific scenarios. Like, you'll go to your dad and be like, I want to know points. But I think that's like sometimes with the close race, And we talked about the scenarios, things like sometimes the level of confirmation you need in the stage, knowing that you have to make up points has to be that much less. You're accepting a little bit of risk because what else do you have to lose? You don't have to first place. You gotta try to win that.
Right.
So,
Correct.
yeah, is there anything else?
That's what we're gonna do.
Cool.
Hey, Sam, it's your turn to speak.
Sorry, Sam.
He held his breath the entire time.
The entire time. Yeah.
So
right.
I'll repeat the question.
Yeah, repeat the question real quick.
All right. So what were some of the specific bits of feedback that you received from JJ that you implemented immediately? And what's on the backlog to work on during the off season?
So for the things that I implemented immediately, like Josh said, the skating through the stage, like first time I saw JJ do that, I was like, blew my mind. I was like, what is he doing? And then he explained it. And I'm like, how did I not think of this? It makes perfect sense. Like I used to rollerblade for, I don't know, 5-6 years. And I'm like, it became natural to me when I tried to do it. So that's one of the things that I started implementing right away. And then also reloading into position instead of out of position. It was knocking a second or two off of every stage, it seemed like. So those are the two biggest things that I started implementing right away. And then for the backlog, I'm working during the off season. I mean, we're going into MIC prep, so that's main focus for the off season right now. It's just working on refining these POIs, getting better at being an instructor.
So do you have any specific things that you're going to be taking from JJ's class that you're implementing into the POIs to teach the rest of the Marines that you instruct? Or are you going to kind of keep it fundamental based, you know?
More fundamental based. Obviously some of like this stuff will translate over, but at the level that we teach at the MIC, it's more fundamental based, not quite on the same level as JJ's class.
Okay. JJ, based on the feedback that you receive from your students, how long does it take them to make enduring changes to their shooting?
Yeah, I remember seeing that question. It's a tricky question. It's not necessarily like a year or 6 months or something like that.
It's however
really
much
depends.
work somebody decides to put in it, right?
It comes down to that, yes, and it comes down to like Josh or Sam. They're pretty high level, and Frank, they're pretty high level shooters, and so it's easier for them to accept some of these things. But however, the crazy thing is, you know better than I do. You pick up something new, you start working on that, and you start becoming a worser performer because you're like, what the heck's going on? Everything's falling apart. You added something different, and now your timing's completely changed and all that stuff. But generally.
Plus, we're old, so it takes us longer to learn new things.
That is true. Generally, the big picture, when people really come back to me and go, "Holy shit, I'm finally starting to put it together," is about a year to 2 years. Like that class, it goes. I've taken like this. I've gotten several feedbacks and emails and messages. I would say generally, it's an average about 1 to 2 years, and sometimes guys have taken multiple classes have gone to go, holy cow, dude, I finally started implementing this, and this is one of the first things you talked about on the first day, and like, or like even prepping the triggers, like, dude, I never knew that made such a difference in calling my shot. Now I can finally call my shot, and then all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I was like, that was like the most important thing that I talked about because everything built up from there. But you know, it's generally about 1 to 2 years. People that, because my class is, it's not. When I taught Josh and Sam, we jumped into fast forward mode and we literally went into application and field course and where the tire meets the road type thing and started doing a lot more focus on movement. But the class, that class is a shit. Sorry for my language. Crap load of information. Okay, it's a ton of information.
You can cuss, dude.
Yeah, I specifically put explicit in there.
Oh, good. Good. So yeah, there's so much information, and there's so much. Not even just the syllabus alone, but within the syllabus, within the small mini tick marks beyond the TPOs, beyond the EPOs, it's like there's small little details that affect it, and then like from the way the control and attack target, the way I exit from a position, the way I enter a position, it's different in how I move. And then if it's an attack target versus a control target, like there's small ticks and marks here and there for everything that sometimes people, when you're taking the first class for for the first time. You're just like, oh yeah, I see this. And you're seeing the broad picture. And then you take the second class, like, holy cow, like we had two guys, I think, that had the North Carolina class. And it was like, holy smokes, because I never really put together this footwork part of this with the target, because I didn't even see that the first class. I don't even know if I was there, but I knew I was there. And like, those are a lot of the comments that I get. But yeah, generally 1 or 2 years for literally like almost that long lasting, it's starting to see the effects. Not that they're not seeing gains and progress right away. It's just that they're finally starting to see them apply it and execute it in matches and actually see it in a video, as opposed to just thinking what they're doing one thing and seeing a totally different person on a video.
No, I appreciate that. That really, that helps. It kind of paints a picture of a timeline of realistic expectations. People can start to see the difference, which, we're humans, we're selfish, and we're selfish beings. And we want to know how long things are going to take us. So by putting things in perspective, I think it gives the listeners and just people in general a realistic expectation of, if they put the work in, this is the results that you can expect.
Yeah. Here's the thing too. It sucks, right? Because I wish there was like a shortcut, but
we all do.
Unfortunately, like my example for me was Rob Latham one time had a conversation with me. He's like, you need to learn how to start shooting in rhythm. Your rhythm's a little off. The way your gun sounds on this particular array is not right. And I'm sitting there going, man, I shot that pretty good. I thought, I was like, man, I was top 3, top 4. He's like, once you start figuring out how to shoot off of rhythm and build off the stage plan on that, you'll start to see your shooting take to the next level. And I had no idea what he meant by that. So I tried it. I'm like, no freaking way. He's crazy to establish the rhythm before I even shoot the target array, and rely on that to shoot the match, or to shoot that particular array in the way I predicted what the sound is going to be like, not knowing what my sight's going to be, not knowing how the terrain's going to be, not knowing whatever, right? There's variables when you actually pull the gun and pull and on target and stuff like that. And I was like, he wants me to shoot in a particular rhythm. I didn't totally know what he meant by that. So I took that and literally dumped it. That information, I was like, I'm dumping that in the garbage. I don't need that. It took like 3 or 4 years. And finally I started doing certain things. And then all of a sudden it just hit me. One of my walkthroughs, I'm like, holy smokes, I'm going to shoot this in this rhythm, shoot that in that rhythm. And that's exactly how it should sound like. That's how I've been doing it for 16 stages now. I just got to finish the match and I'll win this. And I did it. And I remember I'm like, is this what Robbie's talking about? And I finally talked to him and asked him. And he kind of like vaguely like confirmed, like, yes, I want you to establish the rhythm, but, add more details like sights and trigger and cover variables in there. But you're not always going to hone in on that and leave everything live or die on the rhythm, but that's going to be the rhythm that you're going to predict yourself to shoot, and blah, 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 blah. And then it went on. And now I teach it and I'm like, gosh, man, like I think Josh, and I don't know if Josh and Sam, I think we were able to do it in the class in regards to the attack control drill, but you can see that the time starts to dip once you start shooting the attack control in the right rhythm, from 2-1-2 to 2-3 and all that stuff. But I think, Sam, Josh, were we able to do that in your class?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
Yeah, we did
Did you see the significant difference in regards to time drop and when you change the rhythm and the way it's shot? Was that your class?
Well, there was change. I think it was more from the other students that had never done that type, like had never utilized that technique.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
like a lot of the newer shooters, once they implemented, they were like, okay, that made sense. And that's when they saw their significant change in performance.
Right. I think because you were already doing it. The rhythm was there already on yours, I think. But yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Nice. Next question's for Sam and Josh. Josh, we'll start with you.
Okay.
What are some of the things you took from JJ's teaching style? Maybe the way he explained things, his approach, the energy that you want to start implementing in your instruction in the mix. I understand that the mix are a different ballgame, but you were going there to learn from him in terms of shooting, but also you must have taken some things from him just in terms of teaching people and getting good to people.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually the second reason why I wanted to attend the class was for the instructional development, because I knew that you were a really strong teacher, and I wanted to observe your style of instruction. So that was the hardest part, because my weakness when it comes to instruction is that I talk a lot. And because I feel passionate about something, and then I want to talk a lot, and I want to be able to make sure that everyone understands the information or the subject. And so I wanted to learn and see if you were see how you were able to balance that that communication skill between the students. on getting, the information to them for them to understand, but also to not just waste time, just me running my mouth. And then, they get maybe 10 minutes of shooting. So that was the biggest lesson I learned, was that yes, so you're so like outgoing and personable, and it's fun. It's just fun to have a conversation with you, but also you have reference points to fighting. You have reference points to law enforcement. Like you use reference points for people to for them to click, because everyone obviously operates differently, and they can kind of grab onto that subject and go, okay, now that subject kind of matters. So I think utilizing an appropriate amount of reference points to other things aside from shooting definitely helps grab people's attention on retaining that information. So I think that's big. I think that was the biggest thing I'm taking from that.
Okay,
Sure.
Right. Sam, what are you going to do besides bring donuts for everyone in the morning?
Hey, I mean, that's number one, right?
I think both classes you brought donuts, JJ. I was very thankful.
He also brought donuts to our class.
I did.
Tradition.
Yeah, pretty much what Josh said. I don't really have anything else to add to that.
What's crazy is that I also, as you guys know, I could tell stories all day long, but one of the biggest things I had to do, Josh, as you guys mentioned it, Sam, is that we're super passionate and we don't want to skip steps in regards to words. And so hopefully they don't misunderstand what you're trying to say. And that's one of the things that I had to clean up through the years, is going, I need to be able to reference something that will hit on them right away, and that they understand how the body mechanic part works if they were doing something in regards to body mechanics or whatever, and then tie it into that, and then like snip it and let them have it and see if they understand it. If they need more, then maybe an individual conversation, but I want them to shoot more, because I don't like to sit there and chit chat for freaking 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and they're only getting 10 minutes of shooting for each hour.
Right. But I'd say that because you have a much lower, you have less students to basically work with. So, anywhere from I'm sure 12 to 15, maybe more, but we have an audience of anywhere from 30 to 52 students at a time. And with our new format that we just, that we're going to be implementing for our mix is that we have 8 hours in the day to do one subject. So now it's just all pistol. The next day it's all rifle. The next day it's all carbine stuff or close base stuff. So they're able to, we have more time with the students, but our audience base is still relatively large. And I just, my biggest challenge here is to want to balance that. I want to be able to reach every individual person and make sure that they're all following through the instruction. But I understand that everyone's level of skill, their skill level is not the same. So obviously, this person might not retain the same information that as maybe a higher level shooter. So I just want to ensure that everyone starts kind of leveling and keeping up with the instruction. But I don't know necessarily how to do that. I just know that I need to talk about it, but how else do I actually get to them so they can actually still follow with everyone else?
Yes, no, I agree with you. When I worked in an academy a long time ago, and one of the things I hated was an instructor would just sit there in the front and talk about motivational stories. I'm like, man, just stick to the plan. stick to the topic. I don't need to be motivated. I'm one of the instructors. I'm like, I just want to get them out there. And so whenever I led the classes, whatever, I would go stick to the plan. I would name all the EPOs. These are the things that we're going to do. These are the main goals here. We're going to do it in the line. And once we got in the line, I tried to make sure that I had either line instructors or the tower make sure to throw reminders, and we got personal with each. We try to work with every single one. Reminders here, hey, do this. Pay attention to one or two people. Pick them up. Hey, dude, do this, and then so everyone got that personal, because like you said, everyone's at a different level, and that was what always helped. So kind of translated, that was one of the things I brought into my classes, even though it's a lot more controlled. I'm like, I do this. I'm like, even if you have a question, hey, can you say that in the second line? Let's get back in the line. Let's start shooting. Get this drill done. Once it's your turn, I'm gonna get my eyes on you and see what the question is, and if we can address it right there. And sometimes, as you saw, I'll stop the entire class and I'll go, hey, this is how I adjust this one particular person, because this is how I'm going to communicate this particular skill set, and this is how we adjust, because each person is different. And then I'm going to, maybe the same topic, but I'm going to stop the class again for another shooter, but we're making adjustments, and everyone's kind of learning. Go, oh, the same freaking topic, but he addressed that guy differently than this guy, and they both had a similar results in the end. Why is that? Because two different people, basically, two different skill sets, etc.
Interesting. Okay, nice.
So, I mean, you brought up a good segue into our next set of questions, which is your teaching career, JJ. So on your podcast with Brian Connolly, you talked about how you lied your ass off to get your first teaching gig, and how it didn't necessarily go that great. I think a lot of us have had that experience where I took a rifle class up at SIG, and they had us teach like 20 cops at the end of the week. And they all stared at me the entire time like they were hostages, man. They gave me nothing. Like the entire time I was like lively, like trying to get them in it, and they're just like, we
That's a rare, that could be rare, you being lively at times.
I was told specifically, like, point of feedback was to bring my personality the next day. So it was something that I was learning, like, it's something I struggle with. I can be very deadpan and monotone. But can you recap how your first class went? I know it's not like necessarily a great memory. And then what changes did you make from that point in order to ensure success?
Oh, so it's a vivid memory because it was a total failure. So, right, they asked me, have you taught? And I was like, yeah, I've taught. I consider teaching walking someone through a field course. Like that was me teaching, right? And so anyway, my first class was literally simple as, I think it was a bill drill, learning how to recoil management, shoots fast from the holster, accurately and speed at 7 yards. And I had a specialized group that I was teaching, and these guys were pretty advanced already, and I'd known that. And so I walked up and they said, hey, Jay, you got the lead on this, take care of it. And I'm like, all right, sounds good, you're a speed shooter. Just remember the lesson plan, all piece. And I'm like, all right, I kind of read over it. And I'm like, I kind of know this already. Everything I read, I knew. Everything they're saying, I knew. I'm like, all right, I kind of know. But I didn't really know it. I just knew it for me, but I didn't know how to distribute it. Anyway, my first class was basically, I followed the EDIP method, explain, demonstrate, imitate, and practice. So I knew at least that. So I was like, all right, guys, we're here. This is what we're gonna do. Run this 6-round rhythm drill. We're gonna draw from concealment. From 7 yards, we're gonna draw and fire at this QIT target. 6 rounds in the 10-point ring in 3 seconds. And then they were like, all right, cool. That's pretty fast. Yeah, it's creating dynamic. This is how it's gonna look, guys. All right, everyone step off the line. When the target's face, I'm going to draw and engage 6 rounds in 3 seconds in the 10-point ring. Shoot ready. Target face, bladed, blah, blah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, did my posting given action, reholster. God, I nailed the drill. I remember, and I asked the tower to face the target face. I walked the whole student down and said, look at this, the group is here. As you can tell, I didn't really shoot all that fast. Everything was going well, this and that. All right, it's your turn. Everyone went back on the line. All right, guys, you guys will be partnered up, right? Partner up. When the target's face, you will have 3 seconds to shoot. No, I think we started them at 6 seconds to shoot 6 rounds in the target. You'll start there and we'll start speeding you guys up. All right, see target, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of shooting. And I couldn't even follow one person's rhythm. And I'm like, man, that sounded all over the place. And target face again, and we saw targets all over, shots all over the place. I was like, hey guys, like stop the class. Like, can we do that better? Can we make sure you guys hit the center, not just the target? And everyone's like, okay, I guess. And everyone walked back and I said, all right, guys, repeat it again. Blah, blah, blah. And I remember I'm like, that didn't help. Like everyone's still the same shitty shooters. And I'm like, all right, guys, let's like, listen, this is the goal right here. This little circle right here is the goal. We're gonna keep our sights on there and pull the trigger on there. All right. I was like, not this, like that's bad. That's bad. This is what we want. And then I'm looking around, go back on there, start it again, shot again, all over the place. I'm like, all right, guys. They're like, hey man, can you show us how? Can you teach us how to do what you just did? You did it in half the time. We're doing it and we're barely keeping it all in a sense. All right, guys, just watch. Just watch. Target face. I fired 6 rounds. See? and I remember saying, see, I'm proud of myself because like now I got 12 rounds like this. See, that it's not that hard. Just keep your sights on a target and pull the trigger. And everyone gave me a look, and finally I feel a hand on my shoulder and was like, hey, Jay, Al wants to see you. I think Al wants to see you in the tower. I'm like, all right. He goes, I'll take care of the class. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I ran up to the tower, and that's when I got my yellow card. And they're like, hey, you get this yellow card because you didn't teach very well over there. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I was like, these guys are terrible shooters. Like they're supposed to be this and this, and they're supposed to be special and all that. But they can't shoot for shit. They're like, bro, you didn't teach for the last 30 minutes you were out there. You didn't teach shit. And I'm like, I did. I showed them what to do. Like you showed them, but you didn't break it down into steps. And I'm like, what do I need? He goes, you never mentioned EPO. You didn't bring up the draw, the grip, the establish the sights and index, and you didn't do. I'm like, what is? I was like, I don't need that. These guys are not 5 years old. I'm like, you need to teach them because some of the stuff that you even talk about when we're just in the lunchroom is even above my head. And I'm pretty competent with the freaking gun. I need you to learn to break it down. And I'm like, It's like, you need to shadow everyone. Your job is just to demo and not say shit. Your job is to shadow, I forgot his name now. He's big on Instagram. Dang it. But anyway, he was former Delta guy. Follow and shadow him and see him and teach in classroom, see him teach in the range, and see how it is. And just he'll mentor you. And then luckily I didn't get fired. I just got to sit there and watch and watch and watch. So I didn't know now that you can never get enough details out there, and that's always been the struggle. Like Josh said, I talk a lot. We talk a lot as instructors because we're passionate. We don't want to, we want to cover all the details, but at the same time, your job is to make sure you're precise and concise with your communication skill set and to hammer down the details that are important ones and then see what needs to be adjusted. There are things out there that are really important details like grip, trigger, and sights and all that stuff, but a lot of people don't need all of that. Some people just need, hey dude, you need to fix your trigger. You need to just see your sights, and that's it. And that's more of an on the line type of call. You mentioned that throughout the thing, and you don't want to hammer that over and over in the speech part of the class. But when they're doing it, you tweak each and every single person according to the results on target. But really, I'm looking at the way they're moving their guns around. If the gun's doing this, I'm like, all right, I need to hit the grip first. That's the first initial thing. But if the gun is doing this when they're shooting 6 rounds, but their results are terrible, I'm going to ask that person right away. I'm like, all right, we're 7 yards. How much sights are you seeing? And then start needing you to start seeing that sight picture. So each and every single one of them, I'm starting to cone in and tune each shooter to become a better shooter for their particular deficiency and stuff like that. So I've learned to kind of get better and almost essentially treat everyone as if they're 5 years old. And I'm just going to keep the baby steps, because the baby steps is if you keep skipping baby steps and just show them the secret sauce or whatever people want to call it, they end up will grow and progress, but they'll have a lot of holes in their game. And when the pressure comes, that's when the hole starts to get exposed and their fundamentals start to fall apart and the performance goes right out the window after that too.
And Frank, I was only joshing you,
I know myself.
I'm the same. I'm the same way. I can be pretty deadpan too at times. I understand that, but I had a sip of whiskey and I felt froggy, so I had to.
Dude, we're all Marines. The resting bitch face is real.
All right, so JJ, you've been teaching a long time. How important is instructing to understanding your craft as a practical shooter?
So I thought I knew, how do I put this? I thought I knew a lot until I started teaching other people, right? And then when I started teaching other people, some of the stuff that I taught didn't really translate the way I did things or the way it came out for them. And I didn't like the results. So by teaching, I've gotten to become a better shooter because I dove deeper into the science part of it and why one thing works for me and not the other, and how do I need to make this better for me, and how can I communicate this better for another person. And so now whenever I'm doing certain things, I've broken it down so much that I can either give you the most detailed aspect of the one topic that I can give you, or I can give you the broad daylight skim scam, the skimming, the notebook type of reading of that particular, what is that, the cheat page, the yellow pages, whatever it is, the cover, whatever, summary, basically the summary of it, as opposed to the detailed full description of this particular technique. And so when I do that, it made me a better shooter, because now I can look at myself and go, what are the critical points in this particular scenario, string of fire? Like when I used to go back in the days when we had scenario-based training, like use of force, and then we had role players. I'm like, what are things that I can control if this happens? Like some of the things I can control is hitting the freaking target, but where are the targets? I don't know. Those are my big variables. I'm not going to worry about that. My job is to just scan and assess as much as I can while we bound in Overwatch. I forgot what it's called now. Bounding Overwatch. I guess when we're moving up and down, right? Set, moving, move type thing, whatever it was. I forgot now. It's been a long time since I've done that. But anyway, I remember when I'm set, I got to make sure the priorities. Like when I'm clearing my section, I'm setting my POD, my position of dominance. I make sure everything's clear around me. I'm safe, because when I'm safe, I can now let my partner move and cover his ass, because my job is cover his ass, and his job is to cover things that I'm giving up in the front, right? Like whatever it is, the sectors of fire and all that stuff. So I'm like, those are my priorities. If anyone comes up behind him, I'm going to take care of that, and I'm going to make sure whether it's an attack target or a control target, I'm going to address it accordingly. And that was that. What are the critical points? And those are the things that I made sure I hammered out in the known versus unknown world. But in competition, it's really easy. It's an open book test. All the answers are there. I just had to make sure I'm like, all right, at this point, this is a critical point. Maybe I didn't recognize as the critical point, but maybe I saw someone shoot it before me, that it's a high level shooter as well, 2 or 3, and then making the same mistakes on this particular area. I'm like, what's happening here? And I start rehashing those things. And then how much detail do I need to give myself? Sometimes maybe it's just as simple as, hey, make sure you use your left foot first before your right. Everything will get set on your sights. Or maybe it's more about, hey, make sure you come in on this particular area, bring the gun up, bring the sights from north to south as opposed to south to north, because the no shoot is underneath, and I don't want my sights to get anywhere near the no shoot. So it relaxes me a little bit, and I need that much more detail, and I need to feel that wall and sights needs to steady on this particular area on the target before I break the shot. Like that's the kind of level of detail. Or maybe it's just set my left foot here, everything should be right. Does that make sense to you? And that's made me better throughout the years. As the more I taught, the more I was able to break down. The more I taught, the more I saw deficiencies, the more I can go, oh, I don't want to ever do that. I think I've caught myself doing that, and then so on and so forth.
So I think one of the less observed advantages to go into a class with the pro shooters being surrounded by other shooters at a similar level who really just want to be there. Is there an ideal class competitions and size? And have you ever seen shooters start to teach each other?
Yeah, my goal in my class is always to try to get the classes to teach each other within the first 3 or 4 hours in the class, and usually I want them to kind of stay within the program of teaching. I could sometimes I'll like to listen to how they are instructing or helping others, because there's other instructors that come in my class as well, and they start teaching, and I just want to make sure I hear the communication is staying within the class principles essentially, and then I can let them communicate however they want to communicate. Because sometimes I can learn from that, right? If they communicate a certain way, I'm like, ooh, I like the way that's being said better than the way I've been explaining it. I'm gonna copy that and take that from here on out moving forward. In regards to a good size in class, it's either 12 to 15. 12 is a good sweet spot for me because I work on a rule of 3 a lot of times, unless I have a really wide open bay range. And if I have a wide open bay range, then I don't care what the numbers are. I can, as long as I can get the efficiency and reps in. But really for me, majority of 90% of my ranges that I work with are within 30 yards wide and 50 yards deep, or maybe even just 30 yards deep. So I'd like to stay within that 12, because I can split the groups up into either groups of 3s, 4 groups of 3s, or 3 groups of 4s, and then I can run it efficiently, and I can have enough eyes where I can pair up the guys evenly. Everyone's kind of actively engaged in either watching the physical sense of the shooter, and the other one is watching the results on paper, and everyone's kind of constantly engaged. And I encourage people to constantly communicate. And I think one of my points in my class, I think I did have Josh take over, and I think Sam and Josh at some point in class. I think, is that correct, Josh? I don't remember anymore. There's so many classes, but
it was actually Gabby and I.
that's right.
He told us to go to bay. Well, it was like the second bay we were utilizing, and then talk about that particular skill set that you were trying us to isolate. And then Gabby and I talked about on it. Yeah,
that's right. I think I have a photo of that somewhere on my phone. That's right. Yeah. So I'd like to force you guys to teach, because I want to hear it. And because while I'm here, if there's a misunderstanding, because you can usually tell when there's a misunderstanding when you ask someone to repeat it, and then it's like going completely a different way, or maybe they're just misunderstanding one small little thing that makes a huge difference in the overall picture of things. And I've always realized that, and throughout my years in teaching, trainer cut type courses had a lot more deeper understanding than just teaching a bunch of students, because the communication went further and deeper into technique and all that stuff.
I appreciate that. That really helps break it down.
That's something that you guys do at the MIG. Well, that's something you guys do on the team. You guys do teach backs, right, with each other.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm going to teach you the material, but I want you to teach it back to me, and just want to confirm that you actually understand it. So as we keep going, just kind of want to highlight like Sam's path. So as I took your classes, JJ, Sam mentioned at the beginning, I'd basically like come back and I would teach back to him. And that was back when we had just started shooting together, and he was pretty hungry and like going to a lot of matches. So I would say that he actually got exposure to a lot of your concepts before even like setting foot at your class. So in a way, he like learned a lot of that stuff from me. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that helped you retain and understand that information better when you got to JJ's class.
Oh, 100%. Like
Yeah.
it was really nice being familiar with all the concepts. I mean, obviously not having them perfected by any means, but whenever JJ started talking about something, I was like, okay, I remember this. Like
Yeah.
I've practiced this before. It's going to be easier to implement again because I've already done this. So
Yeah, you just got the dollar store treatment through me. It's no, which no,
exactly.
it's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. But so I kind of want to talk about, so you guys are, Sam and Josh, you guys are both, and Sam, we'll start with you for this question. You guys are both part of a team, but so at the class, what were some things you learned from your fellow students? And then broadening the question, as members of the Marine Corps shooting team, how important is that team construct? How do you and your teammates like push and challenge and like teach each other, especially throughout this last summer season? So Sam, we'll start with you.
So I mean, at the JJ class, having the other students there that we're all kind of learning the same thing, beneficial to me because we're able to critique each other and watch each other. And it's kind of one of those things like you notice somebody doing something and then you start to think like, am I doing the same thing? And then you're able to either correct that, or if you're not doing it, correct the person that's that was making that mistake. You just kind of feed off of each other and you're constantly critiquing and teaching each other about that stuff. And then having the team pushing each other, like, I mean, I'll throw out Scott Rader in this. Like I'm always chasing him. He's one of the people that probably pushes me the most, and that constant pressure on me has helped me improve in the last few months.
Nice. Josh?
Yeah, because you have such a broad spectrum of skill sets when it comes to like the students that we were with. We had like Josh Shaw that was out there with Green Ops. He hung out, so he's like an insane shooter, just mad with a Glock. And but I know he is this instructional background and on his own side. So like watching him be a student, but also like give feedback and things like that was a learning experience. And then being able to also talk and kind of learn with students that are just starting off, seeing their perspective and what their weaknesses, maybe the things that I also experience, and and definitely their strong suits of like what they're really good at, and then how they can improve. So those were huge things that I saw that was really learning experience. Yeah.
Nice. And then next question for you, JJ. So you started teaching on a federal contract. Can you talk about the switch from teaching like agencies to teaching on your own?
Yeah, I really, for a long time, I didn't want to teach on my own because when I started to really teach in the federal contracts, I started realizing how much I didn't know shooting. I didn't know the basics of shooting. I just did it, right? And I was really intimidated by actually going out there teaching the competition guys, because the competition, the federal agencies or any kind of academy, it's almost simple because all you got to do is run the lesson plan. And in the academy, you're in a either time constraint and you have to meet requirements, right? You have to check the boxes, and there's certain, like when I trained in academy, I forgot what the accreditation process was, but they were accredited. And so every single class had to be the same, taught the same, shot the same amount of rounds. I couldn't even flex and go, hey, have this guy shoot 10 more rounds, because you're veering off the path, and now that becomes a different class than the other classes, right? And all this stuff. So everyone shot 250 rounds today. Like, so that was the easy part of it, because all you had to do was deliver the product, make sure they had a good time, and they learned, right? But the competition class was so intimidating because these guys are looking for what's more, and what's more out there. And you go out there to start teaching your classes. It's kind of like one of those, what do I have a solid curriculum? Do I have even something to offer to these guys? Because I don't want to just go out there and teach just to teach. I want to teach it if I have something to offer. And my first initial classes, the first decision for me to teach out there was I watch a bunch of people's videos way back in the days when it was like Friendster and a little bit of Facebook and stuff like that, and starting to see my videos, and I go, there's not many people that do what I do in this part of the game. And I go, I wonder if that's different. So I start, Max and I had the opportunity, we're good friends. So we go to teach, and not teach necessarily, but we train with each other quite a bit. He's already been teaching with Amy quite a bit that time. And so when we shoot with each other, I'm like, he gets the same goal accomplished, but in a different manner. And I go, I don't do what he does because I can't follow that style because that's just not my style. But what's his style and what's my style? I need to define that first. And so once I start defining those things and have a more like guideline of going, this is the type of shooter you are, it was much easier for me to go, oh, I don't need to do this, but I can teach that if I have a shooter like that, and I just have to understand it. So I'll go spend some time with Max and have these conversations with Max. Eric Rafael and I have the opportunity as well to shoot against, not against, but with each other quite a bit, since we're sponsored by the same kind of folks, and we spend a lot of time with each other, and we have these conversations, and I ask them, and I go, oh, these are things that him and I are very similar type shooting, except he's just that guy's just a freaking different level than a lot of people, right? So including all of us, really, it's just so crazy to watch some of his videos and things that he does. And you're like, oh yeah, he probably has a mic on that stage, and it's like 2 alpha, and you're like, how the hell? But anyway, a lot of it was really defining what kind of shooters I am, and if I had something to offer. And once I started to do that, I said, let me do a pilot class for free. And I made sure that the guys that I taught that year had taken previous classes from other people already. So I grabbed like, I think 8 people, a couple of the masters, several of them were master class shooters, and I've taken classes from Tajay, Max, a bunch of other guys that I'd known at the time. This is like early 2008-ish. It's like that, 2009. That was like the first time I started teaching competition. And then once I started to do that, I taught it, and guys were like, dude, these things right here, I've never heard of anyone teach it. Because I've heard of prepping a trigger, but you take it to the next level and you tie it to this. He goes, can you hammer down on that a little bit more? And so I'd go home and start typing more and more and more and more, and more things started to get codified. And I like what gave me, and what allowed for me to I guess maybe propel my career in teaching individually was my time in the government and being organized essentially in the fact that the government always had a way about them to codify certain things, right? If it was in verbiage and you can write it and it's in bold, there's a definition from it. Once I started doing that to my lesson plans, there were certain things like attack and control, things that ping on me. It allowed for me to simplify my training process, and allowed for me to be able to follow through and start defining a lot more of these things. And then now I can connect the dots, because everything is literally a full structure for me. I start from the top all the way down, from my trigger finger all the way down to my footwork, from the micro to the macro and all that stuff, right? And then now I put the overall picture together, and I'm like, these are the things that I need. These are just combinations that, depending on whatever scenario, whatever required skill set, I'll throw the combinations however I want to throw them, how aggressively I want to throw them. Maybe I'm just going to throw it softly into an aggressive, or maybe I'm going to go aggressive the whole way. And those are like, scenario-based type stuff and all that. So yeah, teaching competition from teaching the government world was literally one step at a time, and teaching little guys, small classes at a time until I felt comfortable going out there on my own. And I remember my first class, I was so nervous because I had no idea. I'm in the middle of Texas. I'm like, man, I don't know if this is going to go well. This is something I want to do. I really love teaching, but I don't like meeting new groups because I don't have an established repertoire with them. And I went there, and I remember my wife was like, they paid for your class already, so you can fuck it up if you want to. You're already paid. And I'm like, it's like no money back type thing. She's like, no. She goes, so you're already paid. Do your thing. And I was like, all right, let me teach. And I loved it. Like every class I go to, I'm super nervous, as if I'm shooting a major match, because I don't know what variable is going to be thrown at me, what challenges. And that's always what makes me nervous, is the unknown. I don't know, right? Like how is this going to be received? And it's like one at a time. And the worst is when you have a group. Most of it's like military. Like the higher the specialized unit that you train, the more poker face they are about anything. Even if it blew their freaking mind away, they're just sitting there dead space. And then at the end of the class, they just give you a thumbs up, like, hey, dude, that was the best class I've taken. And I'm like, God dang, man, the whole week I thought I've been shitting in my pants. It was a shitty class. And they're like, no, that was a good class. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Thank you for that assurance. I appreciate it. It's like, oh, can't wait to see you back. And I'm like, you're actually going to invite me back too? Oh, dang, like those things. But the competition guys, it's easy because most of the guys are all competition world is so small. You've seen them once or twice in the matches, and or you've shot with them, and it's cool because now I have more and more students now, and it's like, hey, dude, I look at the top 3 law enforcement guys that won at nationals. They were all my students, and I'm like, gosh, those are guys like I've trained, and those are the guys that I'd love to continue to mentor and love to get them in a group. And like one day I'd love to start my own podcast, like having guys like you, right? Guys like Sean Griffith, guys like Nick, guys like Donovan, get mine and Mason, all of us together to kind of hash it out and see, hey, what's a good product we need to put out there, and go, what's the latest and greatest thing that we've seen out there? And one of these days, and those are the best part about it, because I'm still growing as a teacher, still constantly taking notes. It's a mess, but I don't know if you can see this. I'll show you this. Those are all little notes. I don't know if you can see it. Little notes of my matches that I take, of the plus and the minuses, the things that I did good. On Area 7, Florida Open, Dragon Cup, Nationals, like those are little IDPA Nats is even there. Yep. I just finished that Pan Am's. Like those are the good things that I did versus and like some of the things that I need to improve, and some of the things that are question mark, like how do I make this better and stuff like that. So yeah, constantly learning. It's never I've been doing it for almost 30 years now. Just I can't learn enough. Like there's still so much more out there that I wish to be perfect, but you can't. It's like ever evolving cycle.
So you just kind of gave me an idea, and I got this off of another podcast, but you just kind of reinforced a really cool idea, and I'd probably need some help doing it and be an idea with the podcast. Why don't we get all those shooters, like everybody that you could dream of being on one episode, and having a round table, and then Frank and I moderate it. That way, like we can pitch ideas to people, like just ask questions that people are interested in knowing, and pitch this idea, and having a big round table with some of the best shooters in the world on it.
I think that's something that I've been playing around. I think that's a good idea. I think we need to be able to do that. I don't know what platform yet, but I think having viewers and having live questions also when you have such a big group like that would also be a really good thing. I don't know if YouTube is a platform. I don't know how that's going to work, but like having a moderator would definitely good.
So there's a way you could do it on Zoom. I could have up to 100 people on a Zoom call, and like we could put a link out there. Hey, if you're interested in joining on this panel, hey, we're going to have these competitors here to ask questions to, join in. You can ask questions directly over the camera with them, something like that, or they could put it in the comments. That way you're not dealing with, people's mics just going off. You can mute their mics. We could definitely move forward with this potential idea.
That'd be a cool idea for sure. I've been wanting to do that for something. I don't know. Something like that is something that Mason and I have talked about it. I like the way Mason thinks. I like the way he breaks down things. And especially that we're a little bit different in regards to some of our processes and approach. So I like that a lot. But he's very articulate, and he's like a verbal tactician is what I call him. Is right, the way he blends words together. And I'm like, goodness gracious, dude, I can't throw too many 3-syllable words out there. But anyway, like he would be a good guy. Tons of information. The guy digs and researches everything. And then there's a couple other guys out there that definitely I'm like, this is another good dude that I'd love to work with and ask more questions about. That doesn't care, just wants to have a conversation. Like that's the guy. Because there are some people that I know that won't have a conversation unless they get paid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't need those people, even though they're good dudes. We just don't need those people.
Well, like after, here in the next few days or whenever, let's just start an email chain to where we're kind of, if you're up to it, let's just start that email chain and like add people onto it and see who'd be interested and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, I'm down.
The only other question, the only other question I have, since we've been talking so much about training and instruction and your class, where can prospective students find out about your upcoming classes?
That's a good question. A lot of it right now is done through my wife's email, jessica.racaza@yahoo.com. She handles all of it. And this year was one of the first times where she sent out the mass email, the email list of these are the classes that we have scheduled. and these are the locations, and this is what, you know, it's going to be. These are the dates, etc., and these are the whatever details. And then by February, my entire year got booked completely. So it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, I didn't have to do anything, right? However, moving forward, I believe next year we're actually moving into, I think I'm going to have a website as well. I don't know what it's called yet. My wife's working on that. She keeps me out of the loop. I don't really want that anyway, because that's just information that clouds my head until I really need to know. But there's going to be a website out there that I'm going to start posting on my Instagram, or I don't have any other social media. That's the only social media that I really have. But I'm going to start doing that there, and where people can actually look up and go, oh, there's a class open. I'm going to book myself onto that. And you can, it's kind of one of those classes, I mean, websites where I'm going to start being able to add more videos of mine, topics that I want to discuss, and just leave it up and running for people to be able to view and stuff like that.
Cool. No, it's awesome. I definitely want to get on that list.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah,
Gosh, I should just invite you in one of the classes. You guys are in North
Virginia.
Carolina, right?
Virginia.
Oh, Virginia.
Virginia, Northern Virginia. Yeah, we're closest to Shadowhawk, which is why Sam and Josh took your class
It
there.
is. You're close. How far are you guys from West Virginia?
2 hours.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
2
pretty cool.
hours. What base is that over there again? There's a base
Quantico?
out there. No, there's
No,
another one.
Fort
Quantico, and then
Belvoir.
there's,
You have Fort Belvoir, which is where JSOC is. You have Fort Meade.
yes, yes. I think it was Fort Belvoir. I may be going back over there. I wonder if you guys have access to that base. Yes, to that
Yeah.
range. Okay. 'Cause if you
I don't
guys
know about
do-
the range. I know I have access to the base.
No. If you have access to the base, I think I'm going to be teaching a class there, specific group, and it's more likely going to be the same kind of stuff like this. I can ask the TL team leader, I think, or someone that's my point of contact is going to bring me out there and see if I can add guys, because they had a guy from the Navy join in as well, but he had done some work for them, so it was just a favor that they were doing for them. So it's one of those things I can just bring you as well. But like, hey, dude, can this guy come up, or whatever it is, since you guys are going to be, and he's like, whatever, former military, whatever maybe I need to say. It makes it easy for you to be able to get in and out. And I think all it is the paperwork, because I think it was like, it's like a specific range that it's hidden from everyone, but whatever, if with the right paperwork, you can get in and
Okay.
shoot. And they like the same setup that we have in regards to shooting movement and type of class. It's like a 4-day class, so it'd be a total immersion for sure. Total immersion.
That'd be awesome. No, thank you.
All right, JJ, I know we got to get you going soon, so I'll wrap it up with one last question. And so you talked about teaching at a federal level. You talked about teaching competitive shooters who have paid money and traveled in some cases out to go to your classes. So I want to focus on some of the characteristics of like some of your best students and some of the students that have taken the most from your classes. So I'll open up the question to Sam and Josh first, since they do teach a lot of Marines around the Marine Corps. What are some characteristics of the ideal student that you'd run into at the mix? Josh?
Yeah. So ideally you want people that are willing to learn, like they're there to, go on a certain, like learn on a certain subject that they may not have gone on before. And because we had talked about the type of mindset that some people go in, like they're voluntold to do something. So, and they're going to assume that it's going to be terrible. Like that's a very common conception in the Marine Corps. Is when voluntold, it's probably going to suck.
You
right?
get a lot of hostage students
Yeah.
at the federal level.
Yeah. And so ideally you want anyone that's willing to learn and just be open-minded with with the instruction, right? Yes, it may not be per se something that you want to hear, or that may work for your type of shooting or your type of learning skill, but again, you might pick something up that might be very specific that could eventually be effective later on in your in your career or your shooting experience, things like that.
Oh, well said.
Yeah.
Sam?
Pretty much the same thing he was saying. Eager to learn is a huge key. A positive attitude, and then just a mature mindset are the three biggest things that I look for.
I'm gonna add two specifics. What do you think of in terms of obstacles to learning? Ego and the fear of failure specifically.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you, Sam, you and I have dealt with some shooters who like couldn't really like go with egos, like
for sure.
and also like there's when you're in a class setting or even at a match, there's a performative aspect of it. And some dudes, I'll just say it, in the military have gotten very used to shooting at very soft, like very
low standard.
Yeah, low standards, like there's not a lot of time pressure and you can just sit there and drill holes. But as soon as you put the timer to them, they just collapse. And there's a lot of like, I don't want to look like ass in front of all these other dudes who are good at shooting. So yeah,
And that's something I was going to hit on. Like one of the things whenever I was traveling out to the mix is like you want students who have a level of humility. Like they're not egotistical. They can accept instruction from anybody because like, you know, okay, we're the Marine Corps. People think we're big badasses. Everybody thinks, oh, my unit's the best, this and that. No, hey, like let's both take a step back. Let's both learn from each other. Let's both get a level of instruction from each other. I'm learning how you operate and you're learning how I teach. So let's go out there. Let's make this a success and let's continue this learning process. That's what I look at, and that's how I carry on whenever I go out and teach.
Yeah, I just thought it was a relevant question since we are heading into the mix season. At the end of October, these guys are going to be teaching in Quantico, and then come early December, you guys are going to be teaching in Okinawa. So it's coming very quickly. JJ, some of the characteristics of ideal students for you.
The biggest things, like you said, is the big, don't be afraid to fail, and really check your ego. A lot of the things that I see is that when people, I like the ego, right? I like the confidence. I love that when you step into the class and you know you have something to bring, but you're there to take the class and know your role. Like understanding your role as a student versus an instructor, you need to let the instructor take the lead and don't overstep your boundaries, kind of stay within your lane. So to me, a lot of it is ego. I've seen many egos being swallowed up in classes because they've realized that they're really not, and then those people don't get to learn as well, right? But the good energy for sure as a good student, that's always a big thing when you're in there. It makes it such a pleasurable experience for everyone if you're in there willing to learn, whether it's a good class in regards to the delivery of the instructor or a terrible class, right? Either or, if you're there to make a good time and take something out of it, there's always something to be learned. It makes a pleasurable experience for everyone. I think in general, that's always a big thing. If you have a sour, I've been super lucky. I would tell you super lucky in regards to not having any sour or negative vibes in the class. I'm quick to call it out anyway, and I call it out and I make light of the situation. And then, you know, we spin it around and we, you know, whatever it is, but I've been super lucky to not have any of that. But one person can totally ruin the entire class experience. Even if it was a good class, one person could just ruin it all for everyone's sake, which is kind of sad. But yeah, check your ego. Don't be afraid to fail. Go in there with a positive mindset of just wanting to learn. Don't be afraid to add either. And to me, one of the biggest things as an instructor is I love hearing from my students. Communicate with me, ask questions. If there's a question that you think is dumb, think about it first, but ask it anyway. If you don't, but then ask it anyway. If you can't, if you go, that's not a dumb question, ask it anyway. Because the conversations is someone may be like, oh, I was thinking of that too. Like, don't just shy away and like, hopefully we'll hit it. No, freaking ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask that. Please just ask question. The communication helps for everyone in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a great conversation. JJ, thank you so much for your time. I think we learned a lot from this roundtable, and especially in terms of teaching folks. But any last words from you before we sign off?
No, man. I can't. I'm really excited for Sam and Josh. Frank, we need to freaking push you a little bit.
I know,
right? But I'm super. But you also you haven't been as active.
I just got healthy again, so yes.
That's why. Yeah. So that's the big thing. But I'm super excited for Sam and Josh, because I think Josh, when I saw you shooting that field courses the day after the second day on a class, I'm telling you, bro, you're 98% there. And I think the 2% is just literally knowing, and it's in the mind, like knowing you can be in the super squad and belong there. Sam is right there, right? He just needs to break through the hump of the ability to go push the speed a little bit and learn how to. That's gonna come through training in the off season. And Frank, everything's there, which is great to see. But you just didn't. You got hurt. You didn't train as hard or whatever. Push. We need to start pushing a little bit more. But really, I'm excited for like the guys, like some of the guys I've taught this year. I've had some high level guys that I'm like, in training, when we're in class, I could look at him and go, this dude can outrun me with a gun. I can't, like, and then I go to nationals and I go, how are you not with me? Like, you were out shooting me in regards to skill set, fundamentals, and execution and all that stuff. But then we're here in this match. What was the big difference? And that's the kind of conversation I'd like to have more in the podcast. Like, how come, like, Josh, how did you do at nationals this year at Carry Optics?
31st, not my, that didn't
31st.
meet my goal. Yeah.
Right. Your goal was top 20, yes?
I wanted top 25. That was my initial goal for my first year.
Right. And I swear to you, I when I saw you, I thought easily you would have been a top 10. The way, even as stacked as this year was, I'm like, if you just maintain this, and I think I even said that, if you maintain whatever, you'd easily be in the top 16, top 20. Like, that would be an easy day, right? And that's kind of like a conversation for another day, probably, whatever, is that I want to know what happened. Was it more mental? Was it more skill set? Did you know? And I think a lot of us can agree, probably you can say, probably mentally you faded out somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. Mental.
Right?
It was the mental game. That's my biggest hurdle right now. My biggest weakness is I can't keep a consistent mental focused mindset throughout, because like I said, the small things always bother me. So that hurts the most.
So when you say mental, Frank, do we have a little bit
Yeah.
more time?
It's on you, man. We can keep going.
All right. So one more thing is that, so when your mental starts to break down, right? Like, Sam you can pipe in anytime too. When your mental state, or anyone can pipe in anytime, but when your mental state starts to break down, what part of your fundamentals starts to break down in regards to a specific? Give me a specific one in the match that kind of was maybe a string of them started happening.
I
Something
can
that
tell you for me, trigger control is usually and being able to focus on my sights is typically the first thing that deteriorate. Like, I could still move, I could still do everything else, but it's usually those two things that I can't focus on that front sight, and I start throwing shots.
Yeah, it's more. Once I become frustrated, if I know I failed at something, I try to overcompensate with shooting faster, and so my accuracy starts to suffer. And I just want to go fast. I want to maybe I botched that the stage that you were talking about with the one-handed on that one long string right there. Yeah, that was one of the stages I messed up. And so like the following stages, I was like, okay, I need to make it up, so I should shoot faster. Well, that was the wrong decision, but I get frustrated and I go, I need to go, and it ends up being an absolute dumpster fire. But that's what starts to push.
Sam, do you have anything?
I mean, when that happens to me, it's normally the actual stage planning. Like, my plan will just go out the window, and I have a hard time remembering those stage plans, and then my footwork just is gone after that. Those are the two biggest things that happens.
Okay, so here's the thing. Majority of us usually fail as what Matt says. It fails, like Josh said, accuracy, which really comes down to what? Sights and trigger, yes?
Yeah.
Right? It comes down to that. And it's really the fine motor skill that kind of goes away a little bit, because we start trying to muscle things away, right? Me too. When I start to falter, a lot of it is because I'm no longer feeling the trigger, nor am I seeing my sights the way I need to see it. And now, since with adrenaline and pressure, I'm trying to go faster than even possible. I'm trying to go faster than I'm already pushing. I'm trying to go faster because I need to make up stuff, right? So we can all agree on that. That's that. The second thing that I'm schooled that Sam brought it up, because the other thing that could fall apart is the stage plan, like your ability to execute, because you messed up the position, you overstep your boundaries. Now your footwork, if you're not able to correct that and ad-lib that, that's a very hard thing to kind of get back into the zone. Me, if something messes up in my stage plan, the first thing I need to do is get back to the tracks as fast as possible. If my plan was to reload here, even if I reload already, I'm going to reload here to get me back on the plan that I need to be on, right? I don't want to constantly think, because now I'm thinking about what and how to do things while I'm doing the stage and stuff like that. But to me, when everything falls apart, the first thing I need to start hammering down is, if I can, I'll walk away from the stage and go to a test bay or go to chrono and shoot at a berm. And I just want to feel my trigger, a really fast reset, and a really slow shot. Boom, reset, boom. And I want to see a steady sight picture. And I want to remind myself of what a good sight picture looked like and what a good trigger feels like. And then I go back to the stage and I'm going to try to emulate exactly what I just did and hammer that part of the execution. And if I can focus back on that, I forget about everything about making up bad stage, because now I'm just focused on one thing. And that is to pull my trigger correctly and see my sights the way I need to see it on a specific target, a hard target, whatever. Because that's usually where we falter a little bit, right? Like poppers and partial targets, because we try to start doing things weird and faster and all this stuff. And if it's an attack target, I'm just gonna see my sights. I don't give a care. I don't care if it's slow. I'm gonna get myself back to center as much as possible. Because right now something is off and it's not lining up. My timing and my shooting is not here. And this is not how I normally practice and operate in training. How come I can't do it in a match? I need to line myself back up. And this is where I need to see it. I need to focus back on my sights, see what I need to see, feel the trigger. I could care less about the time. And if I can do that quick, I'm right back to normal. And then I go right back to my base pace, my scenario 2 and scenario 3. Does that make sense? But without that base, without that solid concrete of sights and trigger, I can't even find my base pace, which now I'm completely out of whack. And I'm just trying to do things. And now things are just harder. Now you have tension and dexterity, everything all starts coming out the window. But get back to your sights and trigger as quickly as you can. Like you guys knew the answer. We just need to hammer that down. And sometimes if I don't have a place to shoot, I'll dry fire. I'll go to the safety table and prep a trigger, feel the shot with a perfect slow pulling of that trigger even. And then I'll start to speed it up without disturbing my sight picture. And I just remember that and try to memorize that. So when I go to the stage, I will try to just execute exactly what I just did. And the sooner I can do that, the sooner I can get out of my funk.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a useful tool for sure. Cause like I feel like when we're shooting matches and particular, like we feel that we need to be around, like, I don't want to just leave the stage and just leave the team and not, that kind of side. I don't want to just kind of be selfish in that manner. But I think at that point, it's kind of almost necessary for your performance to be somewhat selfish and just really, get back into your, into that focus mindset to shoot, shoot the next stage to come.
Yeah, you guys are part of a team, but this is ultimately an individual sport. And whatever you need, what you were talking about, JJ, is more or less like finding your center. And
Yes.
with respect to like shooting, but what also stood out to me is like you said after that one stage where you like the one-handed stage, strong hand, weak hand, you just went back to your car and you just needed time alone. You also said the next day, some of the things that you didn't do in the morning, like meditation and like cardio, like sweating it out a little bit. I think those habits are so important to who we are. And we're not like, we know what like, we know what habits, you especially JJ, know what habits are crucial to you operating at your peak. So I think it's the whole thing, right? We're all just trying to find consistency and we're all capable of dumpster fires at any given time.
Anybody.
It's what makes the sport so enticing, right?
Yep.
That's why you're nervous when you step up to a stage. Am I going to set the high hit factor or is this going to be a waking nightmare? Timer's about to go. Let's go.
Here's one thing that really helped me a ton. Eric Rafael, the best shooter in our generation right now, right? The best. He told me one time, he goes, the goal to win nationals is to shoot 10% of the stage winner. Not the stage win or win a stage. It is to shoot within 10% of the stage winner each stage. Not 10% of the winner of the leader, 10% of the stage winner. And that's the goal. If you're a masterclass or right, 85%, your goal is to shoot within 15% of the stage winner. And if you're A class, your goal is to shoot 75% of the stage winner. Does that make sense? If you're a GM, your goal is to shoot. He says 10%, all right, and because that's a little bit more of a give or take, ebbs and flows in there. But if you can average within 90%, within 10% of the stage winner on almost every stage, by far you win it. I haven't been able to achieve that goal, but I've come close. And whenever I came close, it's been unreal how much the gap was in regards to winning.
Is this the assumption that I'm sorry to interrupt? Is this the assumption that your competition is going to make a mistake? Is that where you're forming in that factor? Like you're assuming that they're going to make the mistake for you. You just, as long as you are staying in that upper tier percentile, they make the mistake, you're in the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben Stoker, I think, was one of the best examples. He didn't win a single stage and won nationals and won the nationals.
Yeah, it's more about consistency. Like dudes that celebrate stage wins, like, cool, man, you shot with your hair. It's like hundoing a classifier, right? You shot with your hair on fire, like Mike Pannone likes to say, and you managed to, like, you connected, like you did one great run. But you got to do that
every single time.
20 stages at nationals, man. There's a reason
Yes.
that is the way it is. Otherwise, you would have you would have the, the one hit heroes coming and winning every single time. There's a reason it's a marathon. So yeah, the consistency I think is key.
And I think that's transferable across any sport, any discipline, not just shooting, but like, I'll bring in CrossFit Games as an example.
Yes.
What's his name? Jason Medeiros,
Yes.
he's a 2-time fittest world man on earth at the CrossFit Games. And I don't even, I'm not for certain, but I think last year at least, he did not have one win at any of the game events, but he still came in first just because he was at
More
the top
consistent.
and more consistent than anybody else, and he was more well-rounded across the board. So it's
Yeah.
transferable across any discipline, any sport that you decide to choose.
Yeah. Well, hey, glad we had that great conversation. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. JJ, thanks again for your time, man. I appreciate having you on. We'll see about future episodes. I'm sure these guys will continue to want to pick your brain. I enjoy talking to you. Sam and Josh, thanks for jumping on.
Absolutely.
To our listeners, we talked about a lot of stuff, instruction, competitive shooting, some stuff about the upcoming mix. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Hit up either Matt or myself on Instagram, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.